Welcome to Even the Dog Has ADHD, because apples don't fall far from trees and it's never just one. Today's episode is all about money. A lot of us can have really complicated relationship with money, and when you sprinkle a neurodivergent brain into a mix, there's a whole other layer going on. And today we're going to be exploring money, not about discipline, not about spreadsheets, but about lived experience. Because for many of us neurodivergent adults, money can feel louder and tied to overwhelm, dopamine, avoidance, and shame. And my guest today is none other than Maddy Alexander-Grout, author of Mad About Money. And together we're going to explore what's actually happening beneath spending, debt, impulsivity, without moralizing about it. Because this isn't about fixing anyone, it's about understanding wiring. So welcome, Maddy.
Yes, so thanks, Diana. It's lovely to be here. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Money is my favourite thing to talk about, which is not the norm really. A lot of people like to bury it under the carpet and pretend it doesn't exist, especially if
Mm.
you've got ADHD. So my story is that I didn't know that I had ADHD until I was 37 years old. That's a long time to feel like you're broken and that you're basically doing everything wrong. So I have struggled with spending addiction for my entire life. And it started when I was about 14 years old. And it started with food, actually, not necessarily with money. But my parents would give me like pocket money and kind of I would spend that by going into town, and that was kind of the norm back in the 90s. You'd go to town with your friends and there would be no other purpose apart from going to town just to spend money and hang out with your friends. And they'd also give me food money for school every day. And instead of spending it on lunch, I would save it up and I'd go to the sweet shop after school. And then I would hide all of the evidence under my bed, and like I would then transfer the evidence into the bin by the bus stop at school. So nobody knew about it for years and years.
Mm.
And I hadn't realized that really what I was doing was I was dopamine seeking. I was going through a really tough time at school, so I was quite badly bullied. I didn't have a particularly good time. I was kind of on the fringe of all of the friendship groups. I didn't really have a best friend or anything like that. And I just felt like I didn't really fit in. So I would go home and I would binge on chocolate and sweets. And that was kind of my first inkling that money was going to be a bit of a problem for me. And my parents were they were quite we weren't well off. I would say we were fairly middle class. We
Mm.
weren't on the breadline all the time, but we didn't do lavish or expensive things. We had two cars because my parents worked in two separate very separate places, so they needed two cars. They weren't expensive. We had a Volvo and an Escort. We actually had money in the family, but it was very much like you're not getting that. Like you have to earn your own money. So we learned some lessons quite early on. And it was really when I went to university that my spending addiction just completely and utterly unraveled. Again, I fell out with loads of people. I was a people pleaser. We don't talk about that side of money, but I basically thought, hey, if I spend loads of money and I buy my friends, they'll like me, right? So I would spend lots of money on going out, and I got myself into this like drinking, going out cycle, being hungover, not really going to uni, just basically trying to make friends because I've always felt like I couldn't and it was hard. So I got given a credit line of £45,000 when I was at university. I walked into Freshers Fair and I signed up for all the freebies as you do. And it was like, hey, sign up for this, you'll get like some Domino's vouchers, or sign up for this and you'll get some
Mm.
New Look vouchers. And my parents had always said, don't get a credit card. And I've got a PDA profile. So basically, when somebody says to me, don't do something, I'm like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So I signed up for all of these credit cards and all the loans and all of the things that really I probably shouldn't have done. And I didn't know how to manage credit. I knew I had to pay it back. I wasn't completely naive, but I thought it'll be fine. I can pay it back after I finish university and I'm earning loads of money. So when all of the debt collectors letters started coming and I couldn't afford to make the payments, and I'd basically racked up £40,000 of debt within the first 2 years of uni, I panicked, I disappeared, I buried my head in the sand and I moved to a completely new city just because I thought, well, if I move, they won't find me. Thank you, electoral roll. Like, they always know where you're going to be. So I hid for a really long time. And it was only when a bailiff turned up at my house that I really started to think, I'm in trouble here. This is really bad. And what I didn't realise was that I was spending money because my brain was craving dopamine. And when I learned and realised that, which was at the ripe old age of 37, I'd been a money specialist for about 4 or 5 years at this point, but I had never seen the connection with ADHD and with money. And as our brains do, I fell down a rabbit hole when I got my diagnosis. And like, I feel really bad for my son actually, because it was him. It was him. He was the reason why I got diagnosed. And it was his teacher. She said, Ben's got ADHD. And I said, no, he doesn't. He's not a naughty little boy. And she said, well, actually, that's a really big common misconception. You don't have to be a naughty little boy to have ADHD. Firstly, yes, he's not naughty, but he is very hyperactive. He fidgets a lot. He struggles to concentrate. And his brain works in a different way. So I was like, okay, I'll go and have a look at this. And the first thing I did was I went to TikTok because as a big TikTok person myself, I thought I'll go and have a look at it. So I went and had a look. Female adults can have ADHD. And I was like, what is this sorcery? Like, how is this happening? So I looked at it, and every video I watched, I was like, that's me, that's me. And I spoke to my friends about it, and they were like, duh. And I said, hang on a minute, right? How come everybody seems to think I've got ADHD, but nobody's ever said anything? And they were like, well, it's just a bit rude to tell your friend that they've got like issues, isn't it? And I was like, issues? I don't have issues. And they were like, well, Maddy, you're really weird and you're really hyper and you're like super chatty and you like basically tell your life story to every stranger you meet in the street. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So then I trained to be a neurodiversity trainer. So at first I trained to be a neurodiversity in the workplace specialist, then a neurodiversity coach, because as it turns out, I don't just have ADHD. I have the whole shebang. I call it my full fruit bowl. And I just started thinking there are so many things that actually make my money story make sense.
Yeah.
Like, and I'd been in debt to the tune of £40,000, actually not just once, twice, very careless of me. There was so much relating to ADHD tax. There was like, I had really bad money trauma as well. So I had to kind of unpick all of that so I could learn all the ins and outs of it. And then I wrote a book.
Show the book. Show the book.
I wrote the book. So this is Mad About Money, managing finances and life with ADHD. I always like to say it is like, if you think about a money book, you think, ugh, yawn, that's super boring. But I wrote it like a book that you'd read on the beach, like a bit of a smutty novel. There's not any smut in there, sadly, but it's sweary, it's real. It basically tells my story of all of my mess ups that I've had throughout the whole of my life. It's even got an F word glossary in the back, which basically, when my publishers said, like, do you want to write a book? I said, yeah, sure. I'll write a book, because they actually approached me. And they said, like, here's what we want. And I was like, that sounds really boring. No one's going to read that. They want something fun. So I gave them a new proposal and I said, it's going to be sweary. And they were like, we don't like swearing here at Wiley. So I said, well, we need to compromise on that then. So there is actually an F word glossary in the back.
So you mentioned two magical words that
Yes.
a lot of people may or may not be aware of, depending how much identification. We got the ADHD tax and we've got money trauma.
Yep.
Let's start with the ADHD tax. What does it mean? How does it show up?
Okay, so ADHD tax is not a tax from the government because you have a disability, although they are very good at that. We won't go too much into that, but yeah. So basically, ADHD tax is the hidden costs and the extra costs that people who have got ADHD have to pay within a year. Typically, it's around £1,800, and to be honest, I disagree with that because I have so many ADHD tax moments that I know that my biggest ADHD tax moment was me not reading a contract properly and ending up in personal debt because my business died. And that was nearly £65,000. So, I think their average is a bit low. ADHD tax can be anything from, in my case, it's usually things like accidentally speeding because I'm not paying attention to what the road signs say, forgetting that I've put money on my parking ticket and then like arriving back 10 minutes later because of my time blindness. It could be missing a train and then having to pay for another train because, like, I did this classic thing the other day where I showed up because I always try and show up early for things because otherwise I'm really late. I showed up 45 minutes early to get my train and I thought, I'll have a coffee. And then I thought, oh, I'm a bit hungry. So I went into WH Smith's and I thought, I'll have a look for some food. There was so much to choose from that I got really, really, really bad decision paralysis. And I was stood there like, eventually I chose my food and I walked out onto the platform to my train leaving. So like it's things like that. And also like things like booking tickets for events and then forgetting to put them in your diary. So then you don't go. So you waste the money. I am an absolute lover of live music, and I have to set a reminder in my phone, the person who's coming with me's phone. I have to have alerts going off like sometimes up to the hour before so that I remember to actually go.
Yeah, and also with the ADHD tax, something that we do in our household, which I have just succumbed to because it takes the stress off, buying three things. So if they're in three different places, I'm not going to be stressing looking for the thing. And they're in
Mm.
three strategic places because they'll off or they can just get lost.
So true. I mean, there's also like ADHD tax relating to children. And so I've got two children. They constantly lose things. I think I've bought like we're already 3 months into the school term. I think I've bought two sets of new school jumpers. Yesterday, I almost and also trying to educate your kids around ADHD tax. They're like, oh, I've lost that thing. Oh, we'll just buy another one. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that, lovelies. Let's try and find the thing that we lost. But there's also things like you might kind of overbuy things. So, for example, I'll be like, I have run out of my hair conditioner when really I haven't because I've purchased loads of them and put them somewhere and then I can't find them. So I've actually got now things like logs for stuff in the kitchen. I've got like spreadsheets, not necessarily spreadsheets, but like printables that you like, because I run a free app and everybody can access these, like little templates that say, like, these are your kitchen items. You have got like you need to order ketchup. You need like you've got 4 bottles of ketchup already. You don't need any more ketchup. And the same. So my app it's actually in a place called Heartbeat. It's called the Maddyverse, and we focus on money, life, and business. And it's basically a support community, not just for neurodivergents, but also for people who have hidden struggles of people who don't like the world right now and they struggle to show up and say what they want to say on social media.
Yeah. So some of the other things that just came to mind when you were talking about the ADHD tax and you mentioned the magical word shame and shame around
Hey.
money and things being kept hidden because of that. It's
Mhm.
like you're not supposed to buy the three things.
Yeah.
Like when I it was such a shift for me when I was like, if I'm going to be using this thing a lot in the family, I just need it in three places and they may not be in that place, but I can go to that place and
Yes.
just not stressing about it
Absolutely.
or
So
not.
there's a lot of money shame, and actually a lot of it comes from money content creators. Like
Mhm.
one of the things that I hear so much is you shouldn't buy that daily coffee. And I'm like, okay, so most of my clients are like either ADHD or they're autistic and they have very structured routines. They thrive on those routines. They need those little comfort blankets along the way so that their life feels like it's worth living. If you like that daily coffee every day, have that daily coffee every day. Like, it's absolutely not something that you should be shaming yourself for. Like, I plan everything with my finances. So I knew that I was moving house this week. And I thought, what do I want to do after I've done the first school run? I'm going to go and get my favourite coffee from Coffee Number One because I absolutely love it. And somebody was like, oh, you're spending a lot of money since you moved. And I'm like, yeah, what's your point? And they're like,
Right.
oh, you've got a spending addiction. And I said, yeah, but just because I've got a spending addiction doesn't mean that I can't buy things. Like, I like buying clothes. I love buying makeup and nail varnish and hair dye and, like, jumpers from Vinted. But the difference is I consciously spend. So
That
if you consciously spend, you plan for the things, and like, actually I've got a video going out later today, like, what should you put in your budget? The answer is nothing. Should, the word should, like, it goes in the effort bucket, that is absolutely, like, one of the worst words. It's a shame inducing word. It is a word that makes people feel that guilt and that power. You're the person with the power. There are no shoulds. So, what do you want to put in your budget? Do you like going for a massage? Like, for me, I've got sciatica. Massages, for me, they're not just a nice to have, they're an essential. So I budget for that. I budget for days out with the kids. I budget for, like, in the summer, I've got an ice cream pot in my bank account.
Brilliant.
And people are like, why? And if you buy an ice cream every week in the summer holidays, you're probably looking at spending about 50 quid in the summer holidays, right? Because ice creams are expensive, unless you get them from the supermarket. I'm talking about, like, on days out, if you go to the park.
Yeah, it feels like we're touching, like we explored it a little bit before
Mm,
we press recording about
yeah.
spending and nervous system soothing
Hmm.
and how that works, and like, your dopamine shopping is all bad. You've already mentioned that with the coffee, and it's external voices telling you what your internal. So my best purchases for shoes are when they've been impulse, they've broken, right, I just need a pair, and then I'll live in them.
But that's not really an impulse. That's a reason.
Yeah, but
No,
the best.
so actually, like, if you've got a pair of shoes that's broken, or you've got an event that you're going to that you need to buy something for, that is not impulsive. You're doing it for a specific reason. What would be impulsive is if you woke up on a Saturday morning and you were like, I feel low, I'm going to buy some shoes. Now, what I say to people is, actually, if it is a conscious decision, you have the money there. So I have a ring fence pot for clothing and shoes. I've even got a charity shop pot because I love going to a charity shop, and that is an impulse buy. But it's a conscious impulse buy because I ring fence the money. I'm like, 20 quid a month, charity shop, I can buy whatever the hell I want to buy. So I'll go in. But where it gets to be a problem is when people impulse spend and it's connected to an emotion. So whether it is like, and a lot of people think, oh yeah, impulse spending is just when you're sad or you're bored. Lots of people impulse spend when they're happy. I'm
Mm,
just going to celebrate by getting a takeaway. I'm just going to do this because I've had a really good week at work. And that's where it can get a little bit complicated.
yeah.
So it's about having the right mindset and consciously asking yourself. And I have some questions where it's like, do I need this thing? If I need it, then it's not impulse. Do I want it? Have I already got it? Look for it. See if you've already got the thing. Like, I'm terrible at, like, buying Christmas presents like months in advance and then buying it again and being like, I forgot I bought that person something already.
Mm,
So ask yourself honestly, do I have it already? And then the third one, which I think is really important, if somebody gave me the equivalent version in cash, or I bought the thing. So, for example, if you're going to buy something that's £40, if somebody gave you £40, which would you choose? Which is more important? And
mm,
if you choose the money, you know what to do.
exactly.
Like, and I also, as well, if I have the urge, because we all have the urge as ADHDers, spending makes us happy, right? We think it does. It's a temporary plaster that we put on because we think, right, I'm going to spend that money. Sometimes it arrives, doesn't fit, makes you feel crap. Or you buy something and then you realize you've already got it, makes you feel crap. You buy something, you forget you've ordered it, takes ages to come, it comes, and then you're like, well, I don't need that anymore, makes you feel crap. So it's about having that conscious chain of like,
Yeah.
where you kind of analyze whether or not you need something or not.
So I'm really curious about this, because so what you were sharing about your own lived experience and when it started. So I grew up in Southeast Asia, and we shopping was, you went out, you bought stuff. It was almost like a social, cultural thing that
It's
we all did
it is.
as adolescents. And I think adolescents probably still do that kind of thing. But with clothing, I don't think, and I'm back to uni, I would spend money on clothes instead of food. Like clothes, and they still bring me great joy. I have far too many
Yeah.
clothes. I don't need them. If I want them, I'll buy it, even just to look at it. and I may or may not have the right time to wear it, but that soothes. That
Yes.
visual stimulation really soothes.
I like dopamine dressing, as you can tell. Like,
Yeah.
I wear bright, colourful, bold, like, hey, this is me, I've just walked into a room type clothes. And I'm obsessed with them. But I've had this jumper for 4 years now. Like, the way I see it is every time you wear something, the value halves. So eventually, if you wear something enough, it becomes free. If you're going to wear something loads and loads and loads, then it has value. If you have something in your cupboard after like 2 years and you still haven't worn it, chuck it on Vinted, sell it, replace it with something else. I've got a
Mm.
one in, one out system for my clothes. So if I want to buy something, I have to get rid of something first because otherwise I become that ADHD with the floor drobe because I've got not got enough space everywhere. And like, if you don't have a floor drobe, do you even have ADHD or a floor chair? Like, the chair drobe is also a thing. Like,
So just wondering, do you think people are kind of maybe overspending with things like clothes because they feel like chronically under-resourced in energy and
yeah,
rest, and it's
yeah.
a quick.
It's a quick fix. A lot of ADHDers will also have hyperfocuses. So we also are quite sensory beings. I mean, a lot of ADHDers are also ADHD. From a sensory perspective, I know that if I find a t-shirt or something I like, I will buy it in every color because just in case it doesn't like, I can't get it again. Like I've just bought a new duvet. It is the softest duvet in the world. I've bought it in 3 different colors because I'm like, I need this duvet in my life for the rest of ever. And that's okay. But it's about consciously doing it. It's knowing that you do it, not bringing shame on yourself. You're not crap with money. You have ADHD. Your brain operates in a different way. But when you understand those buying patterns, if you're trying to save money, you can still do that. So you can go and have a look on Vinted for your things. You can have a look on Facebook Marketplace. You can go to charity shops. It doesn't all have to be designer expensive things. Search for discounted vouchers. Again, in the Maddyverse, we have got a load of high street shopping vouchers that are free to access. And they're for anybody. So, like, there are things like the disabled, the disability, UK disability, what's it called? National Disability Card, where you can get discounts and stuff. So, if you have a registered disability, if you have proof that you have that disability, you can go and register for that. They have higher discounts than we do. But if you are somebody who thinks you've got ADHD, you're on the waiting list, you can't access those other discounts because you don't have them, you can access ours for free. Or within the community, and they save, like, you can save hundreds of up to thousands of pounds a year on stuff that you'd buy anyway. So
So something that's been swirling around in my mind, because we've touched on clothes quite a bit and these gorgeous things, is I remember watching that film Confessions of a Shopaholic and her
oh,
relationship.
okay. So the term shopaholic drives me up the wall because
Mm.
it trivializes something that is actually a really big problem for people who have got ADHD. And I'm saying that as a sweeping statement because not everybody who has ADHD is bad with spending. We all have different brains and different things that make us tick. Some ADHDers are hoarders of money, and actually they struggle to spend it. And in that situation, we're kind of like, it's an exchange of energy. And actually, the more you hold on to, the less you're going to actually make, and the less you're going to grow your wealth. But the shopaholic thing, it drives me nuts because, do you remember those bags, like it had that little cartoon lady on it, and she was like, I'm a shopaholic, and people had t-shirts with it and stuff. And I just think that was the culture that we had in the 90s, wasn't it? Where we were all shopaholics.
Even beyond, and I can just think of one friend in particular where we were trying to find support for that spending.
Mm,
Like, was there something like AA or NA? Because this was way before there was any recognition of neurodivergence at
mhm.
all. And we were looking, and the ads that popped up were get your credit card here, get your credit, like it. And that was probably about 10, 15 years ago. So what kind of support? And you've mentioned getting into huge amounts of debt
Yeah,
twice.
yeah,
What would you say would be a first step for someone who probably feels a lot of shame, probably
yeah.
has been, like you said, you physically moved cities to get away from it. It's just huge. And you might be buying things in a lifestyle that you can't afford, and you know you're doing it because it's serving that kind of dopamine, that need to feel
Yeah.
good. So what would you say? And I've got, and this will be across genders, but I've got in my head sort of women.
Mm.
What would you say to a woman who has got huge amounts of debt, feels they can't stop the spending because that's the lifestyle they want, but perhaps can't afford? And it's like the whole drinking thing. People like, it's wine o'clock. It's the same
Mm.
level of shame. You know, it's
It
wine
is.
o'clock. Let's have fun. But if drinking is a problem, but there's a whole
Culture and
around that.
society and capitalism.
Yeah. And there's a whole thing again around money and our relationship with money and spending generously, buying all these things, but hiding all of that
Mm.
debt. And it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
So, first of all, and this is the hardest part, stop burying your head in the sand. Like, actually look at your finances. Like, you can't start improving something if you don't know where the base level is. So, just having a look at your bank statements, having a look at your debt. If you need to freeze some of it, you can temporarily freeze the interest on your debt while you start to get yourself together. Contact your creditors. They don't chase you if you chase them. And it is hard to pick up the phone. It's really hard to pick up the phone and go, I'm really struggling, I don't have much money. But even if you pay them £1 a month, they're still much happier than if you pay them nothing at all. So that kind of takes away a little bit of the shame and the guilt. Debt is debt. It's money, right? Money is a commodity. All it is something that we exchange for goods and services. It shouldn't have the power to make us have ridiculously bad mental health. It does, sadly. One of the things I would recommend, and I am a massive, massive advocate for sorting your mental health out, starting to switch your habits from spending to doing things that are productive, like going for a walk or taking a nice bath or reading a book, watching something on Netflix, doing something that doesn't necessarily cost a load of money, but also thinking about like what your plan looks like. How are you going to pay it off? There are lots of people out there. There are things like debt management plans, IVAs, bankruptcy. Bankruptcy doesn't have the same sort of shame it used to. There are stipulations around all of those things. If you can pay it off, if you can consolidate things, that would be the best place to start. But work out what your budget is so that you know how much money you need to dedicate to your debts every month. The only way that you're going to do that is by sitting down once a month with your partner, your friend, your mum, whoever you need to actually work out what that looks like. And until you get that step, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm here to like not judge people, like there is so much judgment, there's fear, there's like if you're in debt, you're a bad person. Like if you're in debt, it means that like you're a terrible human, and actually that it's one of the biggest causes of, trigger warning, things like suicide, because people feel that money shame and that guilt. And actually there's always a solution. There's always ways that you can make money. Start your own business. That was the best thing that I ever did, was getting out of the corporate world, starting my own business and not having to rely on anybody else. Of course there are stressful times. Your income fluctuates.
Yeah.
Mainly, I mean, actually mine doesn't very much, because I've got a membership which is sustainable, and recurring revenue is something that I work on a lot, so that I know when bad things happen. Like, for example, my dad died 10 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago. 12 weeks ago today, actually, my dad died. And it was such a horrible time, and I couldn't work, I couldn't show up. All of my income should have dropped, but it didn't, because I have people paying me every month for something. And as long as I showed up for those people, and I show up as myself. So if I showed up on my corner and I'm like, hey guys, my dad's died, they're like, we're here for you, and I'm here for them. So, it's just a thing.
Yeah. It feels like so I'm just thinking about someone like this is the practically how you do it. And
Mm.
what I'm hearing and what I would encourage people to do is, you're not alone. You're not
No,
isolated. There's and I honestly would say, don't try and do it alone. If your
no.
whole nervous system is so jangled, you feel like rabbit in headlights.
Yes.
You've got, and you're listening to this podcast, Maddie will have all her links. I've got all my
All of
links.
the stuff, pretty much all of the stuff I do is free. Like, I am very much like, there were so many people that helped me when I was
Yes.
right down deep in the hole.
Yeah.
So when people come into the Maddyverse, it's free. They can get the discounts, they can get the templates, they can use the community, and the community is there. Like, people will post, it's like, I'm just about to spend some money. Is this a good idea? And everyone piles on and they're like, right, so what are we spending the money on? What's the reason for it? What's the purpose? And people are like, okay, thank you, I've overcome that now, brilliant. And people, there are things like debt templates and things in there as well. Most people think Martin Lewis is the person to follow. If you've got a neurodivergent brain, he doesn't talk about finance in a way that people understand.
Mm.
So don't get me wrong, brilliant guy. I think what he's done for this country is absolutely fabulous. He is absolutely amazing. But for people who have got neurodivergent brains, come and hang out with people that know and understand it. It just makes it easier.
So, gosh, there's so many more things I want to ask you,
Maybe we
Maddie.
need a part two.
Maybe we do need a part two. I think, part of this podcast is essentially trying to think of us not just as individuals, but within a family context, because we don't operate as islands. And as a mum of neurodivergent mum and neurodivergent children, just kind of, I don't know, I'm just trying to think, how can neurodivergent families, of course, we don't want our children to live with the mistakes that we've learnt from,
No.
but how, as neurodivergent family, can families begin to build healthier money culture within our family context without turning it into yet another thing we've got to get right? You've mentioned a few tips, like even just yesterday with a group of parents when we were talking about, do we give pocket money or do we just give it as and when they need it and that's it for them to manage? And I know as a parent, I started with this idea of earning your pocket money, here's your pocket money, regulating it. But it almost felt, it didn't work for me as a parent. It felt meaningless because as a family, it's like we operate as a family. We should just do the things for each other because we do the things for
That's
each
what we
other.
do. Yeah. So we,
And
we don't
yeah,
really do pocket money. But we have some rules around like chores. So for example, if their bedrooms aren't tidy, I won't take them out somewhere nice at the weekend. They get sweetie day on a Friday if they've been nice to each other. That's a hard one. And I often cave because I'm like, do you know what? Even if they haven't been nice to each other, just go away and leave me alone.
yeah,
But it's hard. I mean, we have very open money conversations in our house to the point where, like, my kids know how much we just paid for our new house. They know how much we paid for their bedroom furniture. We go to the supermarket, and my children know how to compare items to know which one is the most expensive, which one is the cheapest. They know about value. They know about like mortgages and things like that. I mean, it does help that I actually wrote a children's book to teach children about money as well. So that's called That's My Money. You can get that on Amazon. In fact, it's a tenner at the moment. And Father Christmas should probably know about that as well because it goes really nicely in stockings because it's quite thin. It's also got a board game as well, so kids can actually learn like and use money as counters. So it's quite fun. But the thing is, right? I think one of the things and the reasons why we have so much money shame is that money was really taboo when we were younger. If we start having those open conversations and talking to parents and talking to children, talking to schools about money, then kids get the value of it. They understand. Like Ben will get in the car on the way home from school and he'll be like, how much money did you make today, mummy? And I'm like, oh, I made £2,000. And he's like, wow, that's amazing. Or I'll be like, oh, I didn't make any money today. And he's like, why did you not make any money today, mummy? And I'll say, oh, well, it's because actually, like, I was having an admin day, I was doing some social media, like, and then he'll push me. And I'll be like, actually, no, I did probably earn some money today because I haven't checked the things that go on in the background. That's good, mummy. Well done. Because, like, I know that you like to make money that comes in every month. And, like, he's 10. Like, we have those open money conversations because money isn't shameful. The only people that say money is shameful are the people who were from previous generations, the people who are like, you can't talk about money, it's vulgar. And like, actually, why? Like, we talk about mental health openly now. We talk about
yes,
things like, struggles with parenting really openly now. Why are we not talking about money? Everybody has it, everybody uses it. It's the same as like, oh, we shouldn't talk about periods. That's really gross. But
Mm,
half the world has a period. Why are we not talking about it?
mm.
It's not something that we should be ashamed of.
Yeah, and often, definitely when I'm working with clients, it's like there's so much shame around time and money, and those
Mhm.
two things really shape our decisions and our life choices, our everyday. So exactly what you're saying about the just get rid of the should and do what's going to work for
Work
you
for you,
and
yes.
how you want it to, not I ought not to have. What you, key thing what you said about that, I like to go and buy my coffee.
Mm,
Have you budgeted for it? Make the space for that thing
yeah.
that soothes you, the thing that you like.
The most money shame comes from ourselves internally. So if
Mm,
we can get rid of that, like I help people to live a life without shoulds. Like, run a business in a way that works for your family.
mm,
Run a family the way that works for you. If you want to breastfeed, breastfeed. If you want to co-sleep, co-sleep. Do what works for you because you are different. Your family is different. The only person who knows how you operate is you and your family. And that's the
yeah,
most important thing. So take away those shoulds, take away that shame. Even if you are in debt, even if you are struggling with spending, like let me help you because there are so many things. And if you want to know more about my story, read my book. I'm going to show it again.
okay.
Like, Mad About Money, it's very thick. It's also for neurodivergence. It is very, very, very massive text. It's really easy to read. I've written it almost like in children's size writing so that adults can read it without like, because I'm dyslexic. I also have dyscalculia, dyspraxia, dysgraphia. I'm autistic. I have PMDD, perimenopause. You kind of get a little bit of a picture of how much I've got going on up here and how much I've got going on down there. So I wrote this book with inclusivity in mind. So even for people who don't like reading, it's there. The audiobook, don't even ask me about the audiobook. It's coming eventually. It's just when it'll happen at some point.
So this is a really lovely space to kind of draw it to a close, and then I think just dangling. You mentioned maybe a part two,
Yeah.
things like how you invest, how you build wealth. And I'm just thinking about in entrepreneur land, there's something a guy called Nick James, he will often say about as entrepreneurs, everybody focuses on making money, but they're not very good on keeping money or managing money.
Yeah, very true.
There's all of that kind of investing, making money, managing money,
Yeah. Yeah.
sprinklings that might be
Making
worth.
making making money is always fun. I love that. That's one of my favorite topics as well. So yeah, we can talk more about ADHD and entrepreneurship for sure.
Yeah. So kind of thinking about with closing out with a family in mind, what would you love people to take away from our chat today?
You're not broken. You're not bad with money. You've got ADHD and your brain operates differently. Start thinking about your money in a different way to what you're told you should.
Thank you so much. And you don't have to do it alone.
You do not have to do it alone. You don't have to join my community. You can follow me on Instagram, which is Maddy Talks Money, or Mad About Money Official on TikTok, or just Maddy Alexander-Grout everywhere else. I'm like everywhere. Like a bad smell me. I just wake up everywhere.
Thank you so much, Maddie. I really appreciate your time
Thank you
and
for
for
having
you
me.
writing that book and just showing up for everyone for this, because it's been really hard to find somebody who understands the neurodivergent brain and is there able to talk and guide people with how we handle money.
It's my purpose. I just think that was what I was meant to do. And I'm not one of those capitalist people. Like I mean, sometimes I feel embarrassed saying this. I'm a six-figure business owner. Like I work really hard. I do get paid for stuff, but I also give a lot back and I do so much stuff for free. I'd probably be a millionaire by now if I didn't. Money, weirdly, for somebody who's mad about money, money is not my key driver. I like helping people.
Oh, yes, there's a whole big conversation around that. Thank
Massive,
you.
massive one. You're welcome.
Okay. If this conversation resonated with you, especially if you're starting to recognize these sort of patterns in yourself, you might feel the need and pull to fix things straight away. But you really don't need to rush that. And you certainly don't need to do it on your own. understanding your wiring is the first step to, and living well with it takes structure, not self-criticism. Maddy's work offers practical tools specifically around money, and the link for those is in the comments below. And if this episode perhaps surfaced more than stuff like patterns, pressure, decision fatigue, that's the work I hold inside the beautiful Wonderland program. Wonderland is a structured program for neurodivergent adults who are ready to stop coping and start living with ways that actually fit them. It's a place for personal exploration, and it's really practical. It's not about becoming someone new, and it's certainly not about fixing yourself. It's about reclaiming parts of you that were kind of pushed down in order to conform and, I guess, feel safe. I get to witness people become themselves more fully, like clearer, steadier, just more themselves. And I'm going to have to say it, more dog, if you like. You'll find out more about the Wonderland program in the link in the comments below. And if this episode has resonated and helped you, and you can think of someone that might find it helpful too, please like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe. That's not subscribe, is it? But it's liking. So all that's left for me to say is apples don't fall far from trees, and it's never just one. Thanks for watching.